Lead. The old days of lead testing are gone, right? The old paint chip sampling, thankfully, because sellers are never going to let you run around the house cutting out little chunks of the wall. It's all done now with an XRF gun. You basically pull the trigger after pointing at the wall, and 2-3 seconds later, it tells you whether it has lead. Works really well because you can... about $20,000. We're, I think, one of the only companies that has one because they're not cheap, but they're awesome because you can shoot 70, 80 samples in an hour. You can test the whole house very rapidly. You can do it as part of a real estate deal. Our inspectors are risk assessors, meaning they can talk to your client about the actual risk, not just saying, yes, this has lead, or no, it doesn't. And that's a big part, right? Because if it has lead in the walls and not in the doors and the window trim, it doesn't matter. Not until you do some sort of remodel project. We care about friction surfaces, where it's going to be abraded and that dust created, and they can walk your clients through that.
Does it shoot through layers, just top layer?
It shoots through the whole thing. In fact, so much so that you can't have anybody standing on the other side of it. We can't take it on ferries. We can't take it on planes. It has a radioactive isotope in it, which is wonderful for testing, but you don't want to have somebody standing on the other side of the wall. So yes, it'll definitely go right. It'll go through all the layers and test it.
So I'm not going to get one.
I should have this memorized. I think it's around $550 for an hour, and that covers 90% of homes. I'd say if you've got a big old Craftsman in Capitol Hill where every window has like 6 different pieces of trim, it might go above that. What I tell people is, look, if your client's remodeling like a bathroom, don't bother. It's the cost of the testing is going to exceed what your contractor will charge you to do it the right way. Just assume it has lead if it's 78 or older. If you're doing siding, a whole kitchen, a big demo, then it's worth it, where the cost of it, okay, hey, there's no lead in all these walls, now the contractor can just go at it. The places I see the biggest fines are siding. When houses are getting repainted, the painter scrapes all the old stuff off, doesn't put anything on the soil, it falls down, neighbor calls the EPA or Department of Ecology, your client walks away with a $40,000, $50,000 fine. The contractor gets a little slap on the wrist, the homeowner is the one that gets nailed. And the super frustrating thing is, it would have been $100 in tarps at Home Depot, and it would have completely prevented it, right? Just literally a plastic tarp on the ground to grab those paint chips as they fall, and you'd never have an issue. So when your clients are hiring painters, make sure they are protecting the ground when they scrape. The fines are huge, and they're definitely out there assessing them pretty often. Now, anybody know what licensing, what certification every contractor needs to have if they touch a house built in 78 or older?
Lead-based paint.
What's it called? What's the cert called? Anybody? Okay, it's called RRP, Renovate Right Procedure. If you have a painter that you refer to, you tell your clients to use, call them up today, say, hey, do you have the RRP certification? If they say no, or what is that, you need to fire them and never use them again, because it's been highly publicized for about 8 or 10 years now. It's a one-day class. Every contractor, doesn't matter if you're a handyman or a plumber or whoever, if you touch a house built 70 or older, you have to have this. Now, the good news is that it's not like asbestos abatement, where you have to hire an asbestos abatement firm and your cost goes up fourfold. It's any old contractor. They just have to have that one-day class, and then they can work around lead-based materials. It just teaches them things like, well, put a tarp on the ground. You can't grind and sand materials inside of a home. You can't use a torch. There's just some specifics that should be common sense, but as we know, it's not always that common. Lead, really the health issue is around little kids. It's the little kiddos where it really matters. So if you've got clients that are moving into an older home and they've got questions about the exposure, this can be a good way to test for that. All right, any questions on lead?
Is a homeowner exempt from any of this stuff? I mean, if they do the work themselves?
No. Yeah. Yeah, lead doesn't see a difference between, unlike asbestos, who does it. Yeah. And the partly because the immediate health exposure is very real.